Hey Josh, I think that you have really good sense of fluidity and motion whenever you're playing higher level content. I think the only thing that's like really holding you back in terms of exemplifying skills within that flam jam snare feature is thinking about maybe the first 3 bars. So like for an example, you're playing these flam accents here, and then you have these big singles, right? So I think if I did an impression of you drumming that, it'd be more in this vein, where there's not as much control. It's like super exaggerated, obviously. You're not letting go of the stick entirely. But I think there's a lot of mass that you're missing out on when you drum stuff that has big motion to it versus... So it's not a crazy difference, but then when you get into more control figures here, kind of turns into, instead of having a little bit more refinement and detail into the grip itself, you know what I mean, and having a little bit more contact from that point on. That's not anything crazy, but it will affect how your hands feel whenever you go to play the faster stuff later. So take that into consideration, thinking overall more contact on the stick versus more, which is kind of where, if you go back and watch your video, it's everything you're playing that has big controlled motion to it is more in that vein, where it's a lot of further grip, which is going to cause the sound to thin out, versus having a little bit more mass, which requires a little more wrist turn. The wrist turn is going to give you a darker sound. Same thing over here. Whoops. So yeah, and then on top of that, when you get to this guy, you'll notice that the right hand's going to be a little bit more detailed in terms of where you're placing all the inner beats. So you're going to have a little bit more control over grace note interp versus, especially when you get to the faster figures later. Hope that helps. Let me know if you have any questions about that and how that might pertain to everything else that you play afterwards.